Welcome back to another episode of the Life in the Right Lane podcast. Thanks for joining us today. And today we wanted to kind of break down a few different scenarios if you happen to be dating while you're in college or maybe just graduated from college and it's kind of hard to navigate these situations when determining whether or not someone is a good potential spouse for you or not. It can be really difficult when you're busy and you've got a lot of social things going on and hanging out with friends a lot. So we just kind of wanted to break this down because we know a lot of our listeners are kind of in this season, and we just went back to school. We had an episode about just the pressures of like feeling like you have to immediately like hit the ground running and find someone to date and like make it stick, and all your friends are dating or find a date for this or that function. And there's just at times so much noise and pressure like put on us to hurry up and find someone instead of really like being intentional and taking a step back and thinking about really why you're looking for someone and what are the things that you're looking for. And that can be kind of hard to decipher when you're in college and there's just a lot going on. Let's be honest. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of things to grow in. One of the things that I was thinking about, just my own college experience, I really valued the singleness experience that I got in different parts of college. And that time shapes you more than any other time, certainly in your first 25 years. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if you have another experience that's a little bit bigger than that, that can be I guess parenting would shape you a lot. Mm-hmm. But that experience, being in college, there's nothing like being able to really take your faith that you had in high school, if you were a Christian, which was likely your parents' faith, and actually apply it to your own life, taking your ownership over your faith and pursuing Jesus on your own accord. One of the hardest parts of college is that it gives you the feeling that you are an adult, that you can make your own decisions without really needing any wisdom from anyone. And you are suddenly surrounded by all these attractive, wonderful, young men and women. So you have this idea going into college, I'm going to find my spouse in college. We're going to get married as soon as we graduate. We're going to have this perfect life. And we wanted to break down a little bit some of the pitfalls that we see from college relationships. And we both experienced this in varying degrees ourselves. There are so many times where people rush a marriage in college. They don't think about some of the flags that they were not paying attention to or that they noticed, but just let go. They don't think about, I'm spending the next 70 years of my life with this person.
Right. Yeah, you really can't afford to let the red flags go because marriage really only amplifies any issues that you had prior to getting married. So if you don't work through those now while you're dating, or at least, try to compromise and see each other's perspectives and try to work on it, it's only going to be magnified in marriage. And that, sets you up for a very unhealthy marriage right off the bat. So we just wanted to break down a few scenarios to hopefully help you guys understand how to navigate this. Yeah.
And it starts with being intentional. Mm-hmm. We talk about this a lot on the podcast, being very focused on a relationship that has meaning, purpose. There is a real communication that happens where you're really understanding the person and you're not just there, you are actually putting in the work and you're being intentional. But I don't know about you, my college experience was always wild. There were a lot of things to do.
Really?
Not
what
like
do you mean
that.
Wild?
Slip and slide wild. I constantly had stuff on my plate. There were always things to do. So like in your experience, were you able to be intentional with any relationships in college? Because you didn't have enough time.
Yes. There was one, was that supposed to be like a trick question? Like, no.
That's a real question.
Oh, okay. Was I supposed to be like, no, I wasn't able to have any intentional relationships because college was so wild?
No, you can have an intentional relationship and not end up with them.
There were obviously a few, like a handful. And the one in particular that stands out to me was very intentional because a lot of my time was devoted to this person. So I think that was like any free time I had, I was with that person or a group that included that person, etc. So I really did have to carve out time for that person in order to get closer to them and to be vulnerable with them and to have really good conversations. So it was definitely like an all-in type thing, you know?
Right. There's no substitute for conversation, in my opinion. And one of the things I see a lot of people run into is they assume because I'm hanging out with my significant other in a setting with lots of people, parties, even going out to functions or date nights with fraternities, sororities, those don't really facilitate good conversation.
No. Yeah, unfortunately, college, there are a lot of situations that are presented to you that don't necessarily cultivate this framework of healthy, intentional, godly conversations. And so you have to, because you're not presented with those situations, you have to be the one to seek those out. And it obviously really helps when the other person is in the same boat and is seeking out those same types of good, deep, solid relationships as well and good conversations. But it doesn't always work out that way. And sometimes you have to kind of sift through a few people before you can find someone who you really connect with in that way.
Yeah. I noticed in particular the lack of maturity from many college age people. And it's really hard if you are very mature to be able to find someone that's on your level. So don't settle for someone who's not, is where I'm going with this. Mm-hmm. There are so many opportunities to lower your standards.
Yeah.
But you should not take the bait, and you should wait for someone who is mature enough to have an intentional relationship, to set aside the time. And you also may be faced with the fact that someone just may want something else in this season of their life. So if they're not able to give you the time, it's not the right time to be dating. Many people get really hung up on that because they're like, oh, they're the perfect person, mm-hmm. right? But if it's the right person at the wrong time, it's the wrong person. So you have to be mindful that if someone is not willing to be intentional, you need to back away and stop continuing to invest your feelings, because it's just going to make it worse and worse when it doesn't work out. Or mm-hmm. you're going to make a bad decision that you regret for a long time.
Yeah, that's good. I kind of wanted to start this out with our small group was talking about in First Philippians, what verse is it? 9?
Philippians 1.
I can't believe I just said that. First Philippians. I was trying to say chapter 1 mm-hmm. of Philippians, but I said that backwards.
You made me think that there's you have the Apocrypha out or something. And
then there's Second Philippians. No. Philippians, I'll just say it normally so that I don't confuse people. Philippians 1, verse 9 really is the main one. But it says, so Paul is talking to the church of Philippi, and he is I believe he's in jail at this time.
Yeah, he's in house arrest, essentially.
Okay. So he is I feel like this book is just all about how he's so encouraged by just the gift of salvation and also the community within that church, and just how he is so grateful for them. And anyway, so he's writing, encouraging them and sharing what he's praying for over them. So it says, and I pray this, that your love will keep on growing in knowledge and every kind of discernment, so that you may approve the things that are superior and may be pure and blameless in the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. So the main thing that we were touching on the other night was about how love isn't really an emotion. It's more of a mindset. And as we continue growing in our love for the Lord and in the Lord, because God is love. So as we continue getting to know him and going deeper with him, that will only hopefully, prayerfully increase our knowledge and then also our degree of discernment. And that verse specifically struck me because I feel like this is so applicable to dating, because there's so many questions we could sit here and ask all day long until we're blue in the face. Like, how do you know? Like, how do you know this? How do you know that? How do you know if this is the person? And it really boils down to when you're loving people and the love of God is just outpouring through your life, God will, as you're growing in that, God will provide you with knowledge and wisdom and the discernment on how to love people well, and then also just guiding and directing your steps in life.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of open it up with that, because it is very confusing. It can be, and disheartening of just like where to even start. Just, it can be overwhelming, especially like as a freshman in college or something. Like you're going right into it, and it's a lot to take in, and you don't even know where to start sometimes.
And you feel like you should already know, but the truth is that you don't have to know. It's okay. There are so many times where in college we both had moments where like we have no idea what's going on, what we're going to do with this situation, and had one of those crises that just
crises,
right?
Crises.
I think it's crises.
Crisi.
We had one of those crisi where we
How
had
did
to
you
call
do that with
on,
a straight face?
It was hard. Had to call on God and say, God, we don't know what we should be doing. And that's kind of the point. College is a place where you should be on your knees in a state of, I cannot do this. I do not know what to do. I don't know where my major is going to be. I don't know where my job's going to be. I don't know which person I need to be pursuing. I don't know how these friendships are going to work. You need to be constantly going to God. And that's where the strengthening of your faith happens. And that's what I was talking about, the singleness. It's not just, I read my Bible and I hang out with all my Christian friends. It's the letting go of the tether that kept you solid in high school and letting you sort of flail a little bit and fall so that God can pick you up again and again and again. Where you're talking about discernment and understanding how we should love, you will go through seasons where you do not love someone well. Sometimes that means accepting something that you should not accept. Other times that will mean you are not treating someone in the way that is the most loving to them. So you discount something that they think is important, or you treat them, you're super great at giving gifts, but you don't do anything to help them when, as the love language thing says, like some people have the acts of service as their love language. So discernment helps play into how you're loving someone.
Yeah.
I think one of the hardest things in college is to evaluate someone's character, because you constantly have so many distractions and not a lot of evidence, unless you look carefully, on evaluating someone's character, right? Like they're constantly in school or they're just hanging out. How do you assess someone's ability to be able to be a good spouse if they're just hanging out? You don't see them in any real life situations, probably. Right.
I do think that it's important to look at who they surround themselves with. So college is kind of hard because, you kind of want to be friends with everybody, and it's a hodgepodge of different like friend groups meshing, and, you can just kind of be friendly with everybody. But like to the core who they spend a lot of their time with, you can kind of get a sense of like, okay, if these are the types of people that they hang out with, and I can clearly see their character shining through, whether it be good or bad, you know, just by the way that they act, by the way they talk, the way that they treat other people, then you can a lot of times get a good sense of who they are in proximity with their friends and what their character really is all about.
Yeah, it says who they want to be.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're hanging out with a group of guys, I'm a guy, so I'll use a guy example. A group of guys that is constantly drinking, that is constantly putting women down, treating them terribly, not respecting people, not respecting elders, constantly tearing each other down. That's what you think is cool. That's what you think is the personality to have. That's what you think people value. So when you evaluate someone's friend group, some people might say, oh, it's not fair to judge someone based on their friends. Jesus had lots of friends and he was in relationships with lots of people. But when you are surrounding yourself with a group of people that strive to be something, you are also going to strive to be that thing. It's very rare that you're just completely the opposite. So if you are with a respectful, polite, encouraging, loving, caring group of people, that's what you think is valuable.
Yeah, and I feel like the Bible talks a lot about surrounding yourself with good company. You know, what's the one verse? I think it's in Proverbs. Bad company corrupts good morals. There's just so many verses like that point us to like surrounding yourself with good, solid people. And not being swept up in the way of folly and going down towards that path, and mockers and just, you know, immature people.
Right.
But I really like your example because it reminded me of something that happened to me. So when I was in college, I was dating someone, and from the very beginning, there were red flags that I just completely pushed aside for a very long time. But, I mean, from the first month we were dating, I saw so many inconsistencies in his character. And for example, when he would be around his friends, he would, and I would hear, you know, they'd call and I'd be like, what's going on over there? Just not good, wholesome things that I would want my future husband to have been like dabbling in, and just not something that I want to be associated with, like just not really great things. But then when he would be around me, he'd be like, oh yeah, those things are bad. Like, I'm not going to say those things. I'm not going to do those things. And we'd be on the same page. And I'm like, there's grace, there's forgiveness. We're all good. But then he'd get around his friends again. And I would see this inconsistency in his character. And that is huge, because you do not want to be the anchor holding someone to Jesus. Like, you cannot be their Jesus for them. You can't be this person. You can obviously be a reminder of Jesus and who he is, and be a light to them and remind them of who they're living for, but you cannot be their savior. And so if their good morals and character is reliant upon you being in the situation or not, that should be a huge tip off, you know, to where this relationship is headed.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's something that you do have the ability to see in college. Very rare that you're not really around people. So that's a really good thing to look for. Yeah.
Yeah. Group settings are huge in college. I feel like you're always like, everyone's going out to dinner. Everyone's going out to the intramural game. And so, yeah, that's my point, I guess, is there's always, you're seeing who he or she surrounds himself with, and you can just note how they act when they're around them. What are the things that they're saying? How are they treating other people? Right. And so on.
Yeah. And I think for women, one of the keys to look for in group settings, if you're not dating one, how do they treat other people, and how do they speak about the things that other people are interested in? Do they make fun of them? Do they put them down? Or do they lift them up? Do they encourage them? If you are dating someone, do they put you down in front of other people? Do they make fun of you? It's one thing to laugh together about something, but it's another thing to be constantly putting someone down.
Yeah, you can tell the difference when someone's just joking and poking fun or being truly condescending.
Exactly. And you can do the same thing and think about who her friends are. What do they like to talk about? What does she talk about when she's with her friends? Those are all really good things to look for. And both of these qualities, having a strong character and being someone that's encouraging, these are anchors to a healthy marriage. These are things that are going to last you for the duration of your marriage and beyond, because all of the charm, all of the fun is not always there. So do you have someone that's encouraging? Do you have someone that's true to their character and is pursuing the right type of man or woman that Christ intended them to be?
Yeah. And you might say like, well, you know, we're young, we're only 20, we're in college, we have so much life ahead of us. They're just young and dumb and immature. They'll grow out of it.
Don't get married.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to what you were just saying. I'm going to get this wrong. The right person at the wrong time is the wrong person. So, okay, you could make that argument like, well, they just have some growing up to do, or we're just having fun right now. Okay, well then maybe later on down the road, they might be a potential, but not right now. So don't invest any more in them right now, because they are not right now what you're looking for. That's not to say that they can't ever get there, but you need to be looking for how they are right now, because that is huge.
Right. I want to be very direct and very specific with this warning.
Oh gosh, I'm scared you're making this so serious.
It is serious.
Okay. Marriage,
and before that, engagement, is not just the next step after, we've been dating for a year or 2 years.
That's good.
Just like college is not the next step after high school. And I think most people who think it is don't end up picking a major that does anything for them. They don't actually want to learn. They just go there because they're done with high school. Marriage is not the next step. Marriage is an intentional partnership between you and your spouse where you are pursuing the Lord together, you're running at the same rate, and you make each other better. You do not get into marriage just because, we've been together for a while, so we might as well get married, or that's the next step. Your time dating someone is to evaluate them. You do not want to be in a perpetual cycle of dating where you're just sitting in the boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. That's not what that's meant to do. Dating is the time to evaluate, to understand if this person is right for marriage, and if they're not, move on. Do not waste your time. Do not waste God's time. He put that time in your life for a reason. He gave you your skills and your abilities. Use them. Go out and use your time for Him. You're not meant to be spending your whole life shopping for a husband or a wife.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I feel like a lot of our podcasts are centered around like how to, navigate the dating world. But then we're like, but don't spend all your time worrying about that. But it's true. It's like this. I mean, it's just the Christian faith in general is such a, like, what is that game called? Tug of war? Like a give and take and pull. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but when you navigate something well, you don't spend a lot of time on it.
Right. And it's important to be equipped and to know what you want and to be rooted in who you are now and who you're looking for. Like, build those characteristics up in yourself now. The things that you're looking for in someone else, if that makes sense. And work on yourself now. Like, try new things. Go out with friends. Like, do fun things. Like, do things you've never done before. Push yourself. Go deeper with the Lord. Like, use this time. But it's, you need to equip yourself. so that you're prepared. Is that making any sense? Like, I'm saying, no, don't spend all of your time obsessing over who you're going to date, what you need to be looking for. Like, I need to have a list of like this, and this. It's important to equip yourself and know what you're looking for and why, and be praying that the Lord would help show you and lead you and guide you to who he wants you to be with ultimately. But don't spend all your time like hung up on all these nuances, like don't let it consume your mind. Let God use this singleness and this time of just friendship and education for good.
Ultimately, the time that you spend single are some of the most formative years of your life. And that's where you're learning how to navigate these things. You can listen to Victoria and I talk about this all you want. You can sit here and listen to us on repeat, but until you experience God's goodness and how, in the greater perspective of things, he is so much more important than a spouse, then you understand the marriage relationship. The marriage is a picture of Jesus and his church and how sweet that relationship is. And we have the gift of being able to have a tiny, tiny, tiny piece of that in human form. It's not just the next thing you do. It's not just the thing you do to fill the hole in your heart.
Right.
This is a picture of who God is. So before you can act out who God is in one of the most amazing relationships in the history of forever, you have to learn about who he is. You have to learn about what he wants for your life. And where we're trying to steer people is to form that relationship with him and let him be the lens that you look through dating with. If you look through dating with a selfish lens, you will end up with a selfish result that's ultimately not a wise choice. It will be about something that satisfies your own desires, but we don't know what we want. God is the only one that's going to give us what we truly need.
It's true. I think it's important to know, and I think about this time to time, to just put it all in perspective again, but we won't be married when we're in heaven one day. So genuinely and truly, the only marriage that matters in the history of the universe is Jesus and his church, the bride and the groom, or the groom and the bride. So that's what we should be putting much, and if not all, of our focus and drive into, like that should be consuming all of our attention. We shouldn't be worried about an earthly marriage that only lasts, like you said, 70 years, and that's like on the upper end. Right. So that always helps put things in perspective when I think about things of this earth eternally, like from an eternal perspective, like what's really going to matter. Like if I find a spouse, or if God leads me to my spouse or not, or the fact that he came down and died for us so that we could live in all of eternity with God. Like that is the most perfect and beautiful union you could ever set your mind towards and think about and get to know. Like that should be all consuming. It just excites me so much just thinking about it. But anyways, when I get so like hung up on you and our marriage and making it healthy and love, like all good things, but our focus should be on the eternal marriage, I guess you could say.
That's a good way to bring it home.
Yeah,
I agree. And this season's not easy, but we are there for you. We want to be praying for you. So please send us a message. You can do that through Instagram or email us. But we are so appreciative for how God brought us together, and we pray that you have that same experience and that you get to experience the joy of what he has for you. So thanks for listening today, and keep living life in the right lane.